Hi guys, Michael here, and today we're going to talk about how to defend yourself against the dark arts of social manipulation. And a lot of the principles I'm going to be talking about today actually come from the book Influence by Dr. Cialdini, which is a book I super highly recommend, and I'm going to link to it in the description below. Now, like I talked about a lot before, all these tools and techniques, they can be used either for good or evil. And it really comes down to if the person using them is really thinking they're acting in the best interest of the other person, and if the techniques and principles are really built on true underlying truths, or if they're fake truths, which they're just using for deception. And in today's case, we're just going to talk purely about deception. And to illustrate all these points, I'm going to tell 3 stories from my own life when people use these techniques to try to manipulate me. But first, let's go over what these 6 different techniques are. The first technique is reciprocity, which is being willing to do something for someone else after they do something for you. The second technique is consistency, which is the desire to remain consistent to previous public commitments and values. The third technique is social proof, which is the trend of accepting the consensus of other people. The fourth technique is liking, which is identifying with people who share similarities to you. The fifth technique is authority, which is defaulting decisions to those who appear to have credentials, knowledge, or experience. And the last technique is scarcity, which is the rarer or scarcer a resource is, the greater the desire for it tends to become. So the first story I'm going to tell comes from I'm going to try to leave out the names of the countries I was in for these scams, because I don't want to imply things about the countries. But so the first scam was, I was in a country and these people were soliciting donations from me. So I was walking through a town square, and these 2 guys run up to me and they tie little ribbons that are the colors of the country flag onto me and greet me, and they're very open and welcoming and talking to me and just being friendly for the first few minutes and talking to me. And so what was that, the tying of these little ribbons to my backpack? What was this? Well, these free gifts that they were giving me was they're applying the reciprocity principle. They were giving me these little gift flags, and then only so they can ask for something later, and I'm going to be more likely to try to give them something, which in this case is going to be money, is what they're asking for, because they've already gave me these little flags, right? So they're not really giving me a free gift. They're just using the reciprocity principle to make me more likely to give them what they want later. And of course, they're using the liking principle, which is the whole reason why they're being so friendly in the beginning and talking to me. And finally, they asked me if I understand the crisis that their country currently is in, economically and socially. And they asked me to agree that it's a very bad situation, which I do. And they then ask money for support, right? This is the consistency principle. They're asking me, oh, look, you already agreed we're in a bad situation and the country needs help. Now, be consistent with that and lend some aid to us, right? They're also employing an empathy principle, which is, yeah, you should feel bad for the situation and you should try to help out. Now, on top of this, and what really cued me into that I was being scammed, was in the middle of this conversation, this old lady runs up to the guys, and she, in the native language, is saying something like, oh, you guys are so great, you're doing the right thing, collecting money on behalf of the country. You know, they're collecting money on behalf of themselves, right? And she hands them a ridiculously large banknote. Now, any lady this age on her pension in this country would never part with this amount of money, right? She could feed herself for days on this money. This is a ridiculous donation. But what is this? And she is, of course, in on the scam. But why do they have her doing this? Well, this is the concept of social proof, right? First, there's another person coming up and giving money, making the whole situation to me seem more valid. And they're also using the concept of anchoring. Anchoring is a principle I use all the time when I'm negotiating prices for something. And normally it's when you set a budget or something, or if you're going to buy something at a place where you can barter, the price that's on the price tag is the anchoring price. That's the starting point, right? Or in the case where you're telling someone your budget is the anchoring point, right? The point from which you start to negotiate what you're going to pay. And in this case, her giving this large banknote is to anchor in my mind what I think is an adequate donation. you know, like some ridiculous thing like $20 or $50 or something really large, right? So not only is she giving social proof by interacting and giving money that this is a valid situation, she's also giving so much money in front of me that my mind should be anchored to that being a adequate amount to also give. Now, of course, I realize this is all is happening, and I, you know, show that I'm in on it, and don't even give the little, I'm not even going to spend the time untying these ribbons they tied to me, and I just walk off saying, no thank you, you know, goodbye, and getting out of the situation. All right. The second story was, I was in a different country, and I was walking down the street, and this guy with a friend, and this guy comes up to us, and he's like, oh, guys, where are you from? They heard us speak English. He's like, I'm like, I'm from New York. He's like, oh, I was just in New York last week. I don't think he was in New York last week, but why is he saying this? Again, liking principle. He's showing a similarity, like, oh, I just came from where you're from. I know about where you're from. You know, this kind of makes a little connection between us, as if we have something in common. He then tells us he's a local. What is he employing here? Applying here. This is the authority principle. By saying that he's a local, he's showing that saying that he knows all the best spots and stuff, that he's the authority in this city. He's someone from this city, so we should listen to him because he should know what he's talking about. He then employs the reciprocity principle, where he starts giving tips about what bars and restaurants that we should go check out, right? He's giving this free advice, this free information for us to take and use, and then that's when he asks for something back. He asks, are you guys interested in buying drugs? Now, I wasn't interested in buying any drugs, but he's done all this to butter us up to where if we were interested, we'd be more likely to say yes and go with him, right? Because we trust him and we like him and he's already done something for us, which was giving this free advice. And I tell him, no, we're not interested. And then he uses a concept called comparison bias, where now he's asked us something really big, like give him a lot of money to break the law to get an illegal substance, right? Then he asks for, oh, how about just paying me €1 for the advice? You know, like he's asked for something huge, like for us to break the law and give him a lot of money. Then he's like, well, I gave you this advice, why don't you just give me €1 instead? And just handing the guy €1, which I actually did in this case because I just wanted to get away from him, that seemed like a lot smaller request than breaking the law. So the way that principle works is you ask for something big, and then you ask for something small. And when you ask for something small, after requesting for something really big, the person's more likely to do the small thing because it seems like a very reasonable compromise to, in this case, which was breaking the law. All right, and the last story was, this actually happened kind of a couple times, when I was looking for an apartment, and the apartment turned out to be fake. But the way these people tried to sell me on these fake apartments and run away with my deposit money was, again, using a lot of these principles. For one, they are always friendly, just like in the other stories. They always want to use the liking principle to try to feel, you know, buddy-buddy with you. And in these cases, they would also use the concept of social proof, where they're saying, oh, so many other people are interested in this apartment, you know, making it seem like a legitimate apartment. And also it's putting the scarcity on you, right? It's putting like, if you don't take this apartment, other people are going to take this apartment. And in this case, I had a situation even where like they would take fake phone calls and be like, oh, this is someone else who wants to come look at this apartment. I can give it to you, of course, now, but otherwise I'm going to have to go see them if you're not going to take it, right? It's creating that scarcity, now or never type of situation where you should want to take the apartment. And in the case where I actually did visit the apartment, we went into the apartment and the person shows me around and it's, look at this, isn't this nice? This is nice, yes it is. Isn't this nice? This is nice, right? Yes it is, right? They're making me agree that the apartment is a nice place. So when then they came down to signing this fake contract, just to make it look legitimate so I'd give them a deposit, then being like, oh, why are you hesitating signing this? I thought everything was nice, right? If everything's nice, why hesitate? Why not just sign, right? And this is again using the consistency principle. I've been agreeing the whole time that these things are nice and they want me to stay consistent and yeah, it's nice, sign, right? And luckily in these cases, well, one case they did steal my deposit. The second time I was in a different country and I was smart enough and I didn't get the deposit stolen. And actually, if you're interested in hearing about all my scam stories, I have quite a few of them from my years of travel. I made a whole different video just talking about that, and that'll be really helpful for you if you're thinking of traveling yourself. Having these in the back of your mind, you'll probably not get tricked by them. And the final thing I want to kind of talk about is this consistency bias again. And this is a super, super powerful technique that people can use to manipulate you, especially when it's combined with a few other techniques, such as withdrawing validation from a person and then only giving it back while they're trying to be consistent. So a lot of times when it's called a withdrawal technique, where they take away the validation from a person, or they freeze out the person, or it's called a takeaway maneuver, where a person will comment and tell it, you want a person's validation. So that person will go to you and comment that they like you because of something like X, Y, and Z, right? And you'll feel like you're getting validation from that person, which you like. But then a moment later, they threaten to remove this validation, like acting that they disagree with you or they don't like you because you don't comply with what they're asking. And then they'll say something like, oh, I thought of because of XYZ, whatever the thing was before, that you were a cool person or that you're an adventurous person, but I guess you are wrong. And then they'll also throw in a time constraint by saying something like, well, either now or never, you can prove me that you're really this cool person that I thought you were by doing this. And boom, the person, there's a huge purse that the person is going to give compliance to the other person because they have all these principles bearing down at them in a single moment where they're desiring that person's validation, they're trying to get it back, they're trying to remain consistent to the previous perception of that person had of them. And on top of that, they're feeling this scarcity and this limited time to act. And that's a common way that a person can be manipulated. Now, if you're interested in learning how to get the things you want without having to use manipulation techniques, then I recommend you subscribe to this channel and feel free to check out my book and online video course, both of which are linked to in the description below. Until next time, ciao.